My name is Dominique Fache. I'm the chairman of the Sophia Antipolis Foundation, and for sad reason, I have to take a plane back to Nice this afternoon. So I will try to deliver my speech. It's going to be in English, but because my Portuguese is too weak. Just two words to introduce myself. I was during 20 years the main assistant of Pierre Lafitte, who is today 88, and he's the founding president of Sophia Antipolis. He's the man without him would not be Sophia Antipolis today. I'm going to try to give you a different. You got the Cambridge story. The Sophia Antipolis story is a little bit different, and then I'm going to try to give you some non-conformist ideas about what's happening in innovation and entrepreneurship. I want to tell you also that I've been involved in Russia for the last 22 years. I was the chairman of Schlumberger Industries in Russia. We were 4 people, now there are 17,000 in Russia. And I was the chairman of Enel and Desa, also in Russia, for the last 7 years. So I'm deeply involved in the energy sector of Russia. And I'm also deeply involved in the modernization, innovation in Russia, which sometimes is a very bad example. We'll get back to this. First, a word about the ISSP, International Association of Science Park, that we created with Pierre Lafitte 30 years ago. In Sophia Antipolis, there were 8 people coming. There was someone from Cambridge came, by the way, and someone from Tsukuba, well, the big guys of this time. Today, I was at the annual meeting in Recife a month ago, and there is more than 400 members today worldwide, full members, including probably 50 in China, which gives you an idea of the expansion of the idea all the worldwide. And this represents about 175,000 companies, and not the worst. So it's a fantastic network, in my opinion, which is not used as it should be today. I'll come back to this later. A few words about Sophia Antipolis. I'm not going to spend all the time on this. This was a crazy story. It was a crazy idea, and I insist on this, on disruption. We were completely nuts giving this idea 40 years ago. Everybody was looking at us as really crazy guys. That's the reason they kept us in peace, and we had 10 to 15 years of quietness. Then, as usual, the nice babies have a lot of fathers because a lot of politicians trying to take over the operation, and the relationship is quite difficult. If you can imagine today that Sophia Antipolis, with this turnover of high-tech in the department, and I'm going to come back on this, is giving around 100 million euros of tax to the local authorities. You can imagine. I'm not going to say that what they are doing is very good, but that's a fact today. Another figure is we're about 6 billion euros of turnover of high-tech in the Alpes-Maritimes, which was only tourism 40 years ago. It's a cultural revolution of all these departments. The tradition of the Côte d'Azur was tourism with the English, with the Russians today, and so on. But now it's high-tech. We have a lot of high-tech, and the turnover is more than tourism. We're changing completely the profile, changing also completely the economic existence of this department. You have the site here. When I arrived there was only pine trees and rabbits, so we started from scratch. It's one of the rare examples, and the big difference with Cambridge. Usually you get Stanford, you get Cambridge, you get a big university with a strong tradition. I'm sorry, but the University of Nice was very small and not really ranked in the first 500 in Europe. You got the key figures, 40 years. So as we say in French, il faut donner du temps au temps. Need time. Need time. The first 4 or 5 years, nothing happened. After those 4 or 5 years, every year we were bringing about 1,000 jobs. On a 35 years basis, you got the result today. If you imagine that today France is losing about 1,000 jobs a day, you can imagine how much important is things like that. And frankly speaking, it was not really supported by the central state. It was a private initiative, which was supported by the fact that the state invested in some research center, some school of mines, some INRIA, which was very important, but it was, frankly speaking, and that was a good thing. Today the results are here. Basically, the IT sector is very strong in Sophia. You have 1,500 companies in Sophia, with more than 10% of them that are international. So we have a strong international tradition. Students, research people, different nationalities, international lycée. My children, they were, you have teaching in English, in Italian, in Spanish, in German, and in Russian now. We have a lot of customers because, as you know, there's a lot of Russian in the French Riviera. Environment, energy, which is my sector. I'm going to teach a lecture on Friday in the School of Mine about energy. We have life science, chemistry. By the way, there was a nice tax law which was done 25 years ago about fixing the tariff for the drugs, for the medicines. You know that we have social security and the state is a part of the negotiation, and there was a law made in France that you could integrate the price of research, which, as you know, is the main price for the drugs, the main component in terms of tariff, if you make part or totally this research in France. And it led to the fact that there was a lot of labs investing in our country, and especially in Sophia Antipolis. So today, definitely it's a success. But at the end of the day, when you have a success, then you have to, it's like bicycle. If you are not moving ahead, you are falling. Which means that we're living today on a concept which had 35 years, 40 years ago. And 40 years ago, there was no internet. So the world changed very quickly. And that's the reason for us, it's so important that we look at the future. And I think it's a rule for each operation. You have always to look in the future and to work at the limit of disruption, you know. To be sometimes in conflict, I'm going to get back to this, with your environment. And that's something which is a little bit tricky to manage. So that's the main components of Sophia Antipolis, with the famous cross-fertilization. Why it's important? You know that project like this is like a computer. This is a very nice computer in front of me. Very nice hardware. You can touch it, you can break it, you can inaugurate it, you can throw it away. But it doesn't work without software. And the software is not visible. And it's very difficult to explain to politicians that for hardware, you need some software. You need to invest on software. You need to invest on cross-fertilization. You need to invest on something which is difficult, which is based on human relationship, and which is going to make the result 1 + 1 is going to be 3. And that's the hidden rule of the success. Do you, how you make, and there is a very good example about that. The most important probably project is in France, in Paris, is Saclay. I was a professor in Supélec, was the first high school on the plateau de Saclay, and Saclay is a big failure today because they don't succeeded to create this climate. And in a way, in Sophia, we succeeded to create the climate. And not climate for climate. Climate for what? For creating companies, for entrepreneurship, for creating networks of people where they can find other people and they can really, and we are today the third or the fourth generation of company, because company is like life. They die, they merge, they change, they move. And today it's a new generation, so you have to keep on life in those different projects. I'm not insisting on architecture. There is a heavy implication in terms of environment. That was 35 years ago, 40 years ago. We have a big area of 5,000 acres, where 2/3 of the total surface is green, is kept green, which is important on our Riviera, where the pressure is heavy. Give you one example, which just happened about a few months ago. Texas Instruments, you know the company, American company, had a campus not in Sophia. It was about 20 miles from Sophia, and with a different conception, very locked in, you know. We are Texas, we're big, we don't need any Sophia. We are big guys, by ourselves. Layoff. 600 people, engineers. It hurts. This is the French Minister of Industry, let's say. And as you know, there was a lot of conflicts in France because there is a lot of layoff. And he was a little bit afraid to come to Sophia. And then he came this summer. And he was really a little bit anxious about where is coming from the first tomato. And there was no tomato. And he asked why. Because 65% of those people, of the 600 people, already found a job. And 75 of them found a job in Sophia Antipolis. So the Sophia Antipolis factor is also a regenerating factor. And we got two industrial accidents of this before. There was one with DEC and one with Searle, the American company. And we could keep the people and we could integrate them. And they find another job or they create another job. It's also a factor of creating companies today. So I will come back to this. Crisis is sometimes a leading factor to create new jobs. This is the famous Chinese ideogram, where crisis is a combination between two things, danger and opportunity. So we are today, in this moment, in our country, are we capable to use the crisis as a factor to go forward? You have this example, for instance, in Greece. If you look, and I think you probably have the same today in Portugal. If you can use this moment to give a new impulse in the society. This is happening, I'm just giving an example of different country, one in Greece, but I think I could multiply this. We have several examples also in Sophia where the people, on the basis that they wanted to keep their quality of life, their family life, they decided to stay and to create a new company. So the incentives are different, you know. But today it's something which is very new, adapted given what's happening in the world. The Death Valley syndrome. We have business angels. We created business angels 12 years ago in Sophia. They invested a lot. I'm going to get back on this. But we see there is danger. The second round, the Death Valley. And we have to think also not only about the startup factor, but about the second round, the fact after 2-3 years that those companies need a second round of financing. And that's always a big issue. I want to touch the Israeli example, because in my opinion, They are by far probably the most successful example of innovation, and not only innovation, of technology transfer. Well, this is the example of the Technion in Haifa. And you have to notice and to keep in mind that Israeli is very successful for several reasons. But the basic reason is the cultural reason, that the state by itself is a startup. So they're living in a startup state, so this is the culture of startup is in the country. Well, the second reason is the question of death of life, and you understand that. They need all this. The third reason is the inflow of a lot of different people. If you look what's happened with the Russian specialists today, they have a lot of Russian specialists coming and starting a lot of different companies in Israel. But they are investing probably 17 times more in technology transfer than France today. And that's something that should be looked at, especially for Portugal, because I think what Israel is doing in terms of technology transfer coming from the Defense Department, by the way, which is quite important investment, is very pragmatic and very efficient. I'm taking the drone example, and somebody presented me a project of a marine drone today. It's very well known that Israel are very successful on this. And I'm putting the question of the investment. Everybody knows the influence of the Department of Defense in the Silicon Valley story and the orders of the different military development of different military company, which is very important for development of Silicon Valley. Every state should look at its defense policy and should look at the way the investment are done in terms of development of subcontractors, in terms of local, in terms of small companies, and not always in terms of concrete and building. It's this is an allusion to the French decision to make a new Ministry of Defense, which I think today is completely crazy. One word about our Sophia Antipolis Business Angels. It works very well. It was founded more than 10 years ago. It is quite interesting. We have a pitch session every month, and today it's quite the opportunity is raising that we have some pitch session which can be organized between different places. We organized one between Sophia and Russia recently, and it was a big success. And I think this network could work very successfully to reach very quickly the international level that some of the company needs. You know the famous example of Hewlett-Packard, but this is the garage, you know, where Hewlett-Packard started the company. But this is Red October. Digital October, they call it, but in Russian the name is Red October, is a former chocolate factory. And basically I was living in Moscow just about 50 meters from this, and it's becoming the most fashionable place where you have design gallery, incubators, and it's not run by the state. And it's a private venture, and it works very well. And it is the incubator factor, but with a kind of really private management, which is, I think, very successful today. One of the things I want to emphasize is the network. We were talking about cross-fertilization. There is a new cross-fertilization. This is social networks. This is the new generation of social, of cross-fertilization. And it's not under control. And by the way, it could be a certain form of democracy, where the people are being part of the decision. I'm not going to develop along, but you understand what I mean. We have, for instance, a lot of transportation issues in Sophia today, because 30 years ago they didn't believe that someday there will be 30,000 cars in the morning, 30,000 cars in the evening. And we have tremendous problem in Sophia. And the people take part in the social networks about this. And they say, we're not happy with this. We do not want, if we are coming here, it's because the quality of life. And we don't need to recreate Moscow or Paris. You know, it's, so there is a kind of social life for different issues. It could be humanitarian issues, it could be whatever. But we assist, we see this developing a feeling of community where other things can be done, optimization, carpooling, and so on. This internet community is quite interesting. It's not inside only, it's outside internet community, which works with other people in other countries. One, for me, very important moment. I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little bit rude. For me, university is dead. The old-fashioned university is dead. So the university has completely to go to an aggiornamento, as the Italians say, look at what's happening in the US. We are late in Europe, and we have to anticipate this renovation of the university. If not, we are going to be under the American model, which means that basically the IT makes the access to knowledge to everybody from everywhere today. If I want to get the best lesson in mathematics today, I can click on my computer and I get the guy, probably a Russian guy, who is teaching in Stanford today. It changed completely the picture. It changed the courses. It changed the diplomas. It changed a lot of things, and we have to think about it. And we're starting in Sophia. This is called the MOOC, but I don't like the word. Massive Open Line, open courses. I hate this word, but it's digital university. Doesn't mean that university is going to disappear, but it means that we have to build a new university, which is going to be on the international basis, getting the best people where they are. And we are doing this in Sophia. We are starting a digital university on energy. The breakthrough. You are basically sometimes in conflict with the existing society. I remember my long conversation in the Kremlin with the people in charge of this modernization story in Russia. And I told them that basically, if you want to be innovative, you will be in conflict with the existing system, with the Academy of Science, with the people in place, and sometimes it doesn't want to change. So innovation is breaking, the conformism is breaking, and if you feel this, that you mean you are in the right track. Try to avoid, and this is what's happening in Russia today, the Potemkin story. You know the story of Potemkin, who was a favorite of Catherine, and he was building the facade village like in the Western films, in Crimea when Catherine was visiting there. It's about the same thing that the Russians have in Skolkovo today. The other thing is just two examples. One was Mr. Priadonov, was the first oil oligarch at the beginning of the 18th century, and he was put in jail like Mr. Khodorkovsky, and Pasashkov was trying also to modernize the tax system in Russia, and he say Russia has to go, and it was under Peter the Great, and Russia has to go under a moral revolution, which is heavily needed today in Russia. He finished his life in jail. The digital society that we're facing today are giving us a lot of opportunity in terms of cross-fertilization. This is what I said before. The new generation of cross-fertilization is happening. It is happening with our children, with my children, with the new generation coming. They are working completely differently. And we have to imagine these new ways for them to work, which is quite different of the basic education and basic principle that we received in our education. And just to finish on a smile, we have in Sophia Antipolis even our honey. So At the end of the day, this is the aim. We have bees in Sophia, and let it be. Спасибо. Merci beaucoup.